Hello and welcome to this lecture in marketing management. Today we are going to talk about the concept of pricing and how to establish value through pricing. So, in the slides to come, I will take you through the concepts. So, let me change the slides and begin the lecture. So, before discussing pricing, let us talk about this word called price, which we have often heard because we all have been consumers at some point of time in our lives. So, what is price? So, price can be defined as the amount of money to be paid in order to acquire the product or to get the service. So, as we know that as consumers, in order to fulfill our needs, we require a lot of products and we require a lot of services. So, in order to acquire the product and in order to experience the services, we need to pay money, and the amount of money that we need to pay is called price. Now, in the second point, it is written that price denotes value of a product or a service. So, let us try to understand the concept of value from here. Literally, value means something which is of importance to us. Now, here it is mentioned that price denotes the value of a product or a service. So, we can say that higher the price of a product, more will be its value, or more will be its perceived importance for the consumer. So, therefore, we can say that price is an indicator of the value, or it is an indicator of the perceived importance of a product or service. For example, the expensive things that we have in our homes are taken care by us a lot. We have got expensive phones, we have expensive laptops, we have TV sets, we have expensive cars. So, the perceived value of all these products is more related to the non-expensive products. So, therefore, price denotes the value of a product or service, and it takes considerable research, complex calculations and deep market understanding for the marketer to set the price of the product. Now, setting the price of the product is not a one shot thing. Any manufacturer or a marketer who is out to set the price of the product has to undergo a lot of calculation. There are complex researches, market has to be looked into, consumers' perception has to be looked into, competitors' actions have to be looked into, and after looking into all these factors, then the price of a product or a service is finally set or fixed. So, therefore, price fixation is a tough task and it is a complex task. So, now after defining the price, let me move on to what pricing is. So, pricing is the method of determining the value of a product or service. So, pricing simply can be defined as fixing the price of a product, or pricing means determining the price of a product. So, determining the price of a product is written as determining the value of a product or a service that the producer will get in exchange of the product or the service. So, the producer will offer the customer either the product or the service, and what the producer will get in return will be an amount of money equal to the price of the product or service. And pricing is a process in order to fix the price. So, pricing is a process through which the marketer fixes the price. So, in the second point, it is written that pricing is the process of setting or fixing the price of a product or a service relevant to both the consumer as well as the producer. Now, this line has an importance here. The price of the product or the service should be such that it is relevant to both the consumer as well as the producer. We know that every producer, every manufacturer, every service provider is working for something called profit. So, therefore, the manufacturer or the service provider will make all efforts to fix a price that will maximize his profit. On the other hand, consumers also will accept the price when it suits their pocket. So, therefore, there is a kind of trade off here, and that trade off is very important thing to understand. and that is why it is written that the price should be relevant to both the consumer as well as the producer. So, the consumer should also feel that after paying the price and after owning the product or service, he has not burned a hole in his pocket, and the marketer or the producer should also feel that after getting an amount equal to the price, the producer or the marketer has made sustainable profits in order to stay in the industry. So, therefore, there has to be a balance while fixing the price, and as we have already discussed that it is a complex thing. So, it is not so easy, it is a complex process. Now, here we are taking a look at the various objectives of pricing. So, pricing can be done with various objectives, and in the diagram which has been shown here, there are various objectives which are listed. So, let me just read out this diagram for you, and then for the better understanding we are going to look into each of these objectives in detail. So, the first pricing objective is survival. The second pricing objective is to maximize the current profits. The third pricing objective is to maximize the market share. The fourth pricing objective is to market skimming, and the fifth pricing objective is product quality leadership. Now, these are the 5 main or very important pricing objectives, and now we are going to take up one by one all these objectives, and through examples we are going to understand what each of these actually mean. So, let us talk about the survival. So, the foremost objective of pricing is, foremost means the first, the very important objective of pricing is to set the price that is optimum and help the product or service to survive in the market. See, it is very important for every organization to survive in the market, especially the organizations that have just entered the market. So, the organizations that have just entered the market are facing a lot of competition. There could be a saturation in the market, there could be cutthroat competition and lot of competitors fighting with each other for the consumers and market share. So, therefore, it is very important for such an organization to stay afloat, because if the organization is not able to survive, then in the longer run it will vanish from the market. So, the first and foremost objective of pricing is to keep the organization floating in the market or keep its operation going. So, therefore, it is written that the firm must set the price which should cover the fixed and the variable cost incurred. Now, as we know that the cost, there are a lot of costs which are beared by the organization, which are borne by the organization in its functioning. So, these costs are classified into 2 categories basically. There are the fixed costs and there are the variable costs. So, fixed costs are those costs which are anyway have to be borne by the organization even if a single product is not made, while there are variable costs also which vary with the amount of production that happens in the plant. So, as an example, I can give you the example of fixed cost, suppose the rent of the factory. So, even if no product is manufactured in the factory, the rent has to be anyway paid. As an example of variable cost, we can take up the total cost that is borne by the organization to pay the wages to the labor. So, if the number of laborers increase or if the people involved in manufacturing process increase, the organization will have to borne a greater amount of money. So, therefore, in this case the amount of money borne by the organization will vary with the number of people involved in the manufacturing process. So, the wages will vary. So, therefore, it becomes variable cost. So, the total cost of production will be equal to the sum of the fixed cost and the variable cost. And it is very important for the company or the organization to somehow cover the sum of the total the fixed cost and the variable cost, because if the organization is unable to recover the cost from its sales, then in the longer run it will make huge losses, and because of huge losses ultimately the organization will have to shut down its functioning. So, therefore, it is very important that the organization fixes the price of its product and service to such a level that the costs are covered properly. Beyond the coverage of the cost, an organization can think of making supernormal or surplus profits, but at least the cost should get covered if the organization plans to stay afloat in the market, else it will vanish. If the organization is not able to recover the variable cost, it will become problematic for it. It will not be able to pay wages to the workers. It will not be able to pay other variable expenses. If the situation worsens and the organization is not able to recover even the fixed costs, then sadly it will have to shut down its business and it will suffer huge losses. So, the first and foremost function of price is to help the organization to recover the fixed and variable cost and to somehow stay afloat. So, survival in the market is one of the main functions of pricing. So, let me just complete this point. A firm must set the price covering the fixed and the variable cost incurred without adding any profit margin. So, even if the company does not add any profit margin, it should at least recover the fixed and the variable cost, and the price should help the organization in achieving this. The survival should be the short term objective, and once the firm gets a hold in the market, it must strive for additional profits. So, because the company is new, because it is struggling and nobody knows about the product, so it has to bear a lot of expenditure, and survival is the first thing that it has to take care of. Let us move to the next slide. The second objective of pricing can be to maximize the current profits. So, once the organization has successfully started its operation and it has managed to stay afloat, there will come a situation wherein the consumers will identify the product, wherein after promotion people will be able to recognize the product and people will become aware of the product of that company. Now, the company can think of maximizing the current profits. So, therefore, the second objective of pricing is to maximize, to help the organization in maximizing the current profits. So, many firms try to maximize their current profits by estimating the demand and supply, mainly the demand of the goods and services in the market. So, this is another very important objective. Now, what do we understand by current profits? The current profit means the profits considered at a particular point of time. So, by current profits, we are discussing about the profits that the company is generating at a particular point of time. The second point says that pricing is done in line with the product's demand. So, when the organization starts doing pricing in line with the demand of the product, then as the demand goes up, the price also goes up, and as the demand comes down, the price also comes down. So, therefore, the price and the demand, they move in a kind of sync. As an example, we can take the example of, for example, during the festivals there is a great demand of sweets in the market. So, when there is a great demand of sweets in the market, we see that the prices of the sweets go up. Similarly, in winter season there is a great demand of woolen clothes in the market. So, this is also a kind of seasonal demand. In the winter, woolen clothes are demanded, while in summers woolen clothes are absolutely not demanded. So, therefore, there is the on season and the off season, and if we purchase woolen clothes in the on season, that is the winter season, we will find that the prices of the woolen clothes go up, while in the summers woolen clothes are not sold in the market or cotton clothes prices go up. So, therefore, in case of seasonal demand also this kind of a pricing is done. So, when there is a product or a service which the organization is selling whose demand is seasonal, then when the demand is up at that time, the price also increases, or the organization tries to capture maximum profits from the market. Other examples are goods like, we can take the example of white goods, we can take the example of refrigerators, ACs. The price of these white goods go up during summers because the companies try to maximize their profits when the sale is on and when people are demanding the product in the larger number. So, therefore, this is another very important objective in which the demand varies and the company follows the saying make hay while the sun shines. So, the prices go up when the demand go up. So, there is a kind of sync between the price and the demand, and company has to constantly study the demand. So, there is a flip side. The flip side is that the company has to constantly keep track of the demand of the product in the market. After covering these two objectives, let us move to the next objective. Next objective says that pricing is also an instrument to capture market share. Now, let me read out the first point, and then through an example I will try to explain what actually happens in this. So, many firms charge low prices. So, initially when a company enters the market, the prices are generally low. Many firms charge low prices for their offerings to capture the greater market share, and the reason for keeping the price low is to have an increased sale resulting from the economies of scale. So, we have a new term here called economies of scale. So, let me explain this concept of economies of scale, and then I will come to the point. So, whenever a company is manufacturing a product, now if that product is manufactured in large quantities, at that time what happens is, as the quantity of production is increased, the fixed cost come down. So, when we are producing only 1000 units of a product and we have certain fixed cost, let us say F, and then we are producing 1 lakh unit of that product and the fixed cost is again F. So, F divided by 1000 is greater than F divided by 1 lakh. So, we see that as greater quantities of products are produced, the fixed costs come down, and because total cost is equal to fixed cost plus variable cost, so the total cost of production also comes down. So, it is always through economies of scale that the companies try to achieve profits, and any company that is operating on economies of scale has an advantage of offering its product to the consumer at a lower price. So, this point is exactly about that. So, if a company is operating at economies of scale and it has decided to fix a lower price for its product, then it is very natural that the consumer will purchase it. It is very natural for the consumer that it will go for a good quality product which will be available at a lower price. And because more consumers will come and purchase the product of this company, so therefore, it will in the longer run capture greater market share, while its competitors will lose consumers or its competitors will lose market share. As an example, we should not go very far behind. We can go to 2016 and we can think of the change that happened in telecom industry. So, in 2018 a company was launched called the Jio, and Jio brought the 4G services to the consumer, and those 4G services were brought to the consumer at a very lower price, while the competitors of Jio were not prepared for it. And because the consumers were getting lower telecom services, high speed internet at a lower price, so consumers left their service provider at that time, and then they switched over to this network provider called Jio, and it in a very short period of time it was able to successfully capture a huge market share. So, because it was a new service, it was high speed internet which was very much required by the consumer, and also because the price of the service was low. So, people switched from their service provider to Jio, and it managed to acquire a huge market share. So, this is an example in which exactly the same thing is happening as we have discussed in this point. This pricing method is generally used when competition is intense and consumers are price sensitive. Now, in the telecom industry, we see that competition is intense as well as the consumers are price sensitive. So, both the things are happening simultaneously, and we can observe such a scenario in aviation industry, we can observe such a scenario in any other oligopoly industry, or we can observe such a scenario in highly competitive sectors, such as if we talk about education sector, there are so many educational institutions, there are so many schools, and they are all trying to maximize the market share. So, this is one of the most objective of pricing. Moving to the next, price skimming. Now, let us first of all understand the meaning of the word skimming. Skimming means charging a higher price for the products and services offered by the firms which are innovative and uses modern technology. So, let us say a company manufactures a mobile phone, and that mobile phone has got a very huge camera capacity and has got some innovative technology also. So, because the camera of that mobile phone has got a huge capacity as compared to the mobile phones which are existing in the market, so that particular manufacturer can charge a higher price or can charge a premium. So, that premium pricing or charging a higher price than the market average will be called as market skimming. The prices are comparatively kept high due to the high cost of production incurred because of modern technology. So, this one important thing is there, that the product should use some modern technology, something should be new in the product, and because of the newness in the product, the manufacturer can then charge a higher price from the consumers. We can take the example of Apple here. So, mobile phones and electronic gadgets are basically covered here. So, we can take the example of Apple, we can take the example of other gadgets for which the companies charge a higher price because of the use of new and innovative technology. After market skimming, we can talk about product quality leadership. Now, many firms keep the price of their goods and services in accordance with the quality perceived by the consumers. So, here it is very important for the firm to remain in touch with their consumers. They should keep a track of what the consumers are thinking and the value that is perceived by the consumer and what prices they are willing to pay. So, generally the luxury goods create their high quality, taste and status image in the minds of the consumers, for which they are willing to pay a higher price. So, therefore, the company has to first of all create an image, they have to offer a luxury product, they have to offer a good quality product, and they have to build this kind of a status image in the minds of the consumer. And once the marketer is successfully able to build this image in the minds of the consumer, they can charge a higher price. And we can take the example, now there are examples here, we can take the example of the luxury car brands like Mercedes, BMW and Audi. So, Mercedes, BMW and Audi and other such car brands have created a kind of image in the minds of the consumer, and now these are successfully charging a very high price for their product, and consumers are willing to pay because the consumers, after purchasing this product, get a sense of pride, and the consumers think that they are owning a expensive product which gives a certain kind of status and recognition to them in the society. So, this is about product quality leadership. Now, I want to discuss the various factors which are influencing pricing. So, it is not just the objectives which are important. There are so many factors which are there in the market and in the environment of the marketing which are influencing the pricing, like the nature of the product and service. So, if your product is obsolete, if your product is redundant and it is near the brink of rejection, so you cannot charge a high price for that. While if your product is new in the market, if the product has got some novel characteristic, or if it is technologically advanced than the existing products, then higher prices can be charged. Similarly, the price of similar products and services. So, while deciding the price of a particular product or a service, the company also has to take care about what the competition is doing. So, if my competitor is charging a price, let us say price A for a particular product, and I also have a similar product in the market. So, I will have to charge a price which is more or less near to A. I cannot charge a price double than A or triple than A, because then people will not purchase my product. Then the third factor that influences pricing is the target market for whom the product is manufactured. So, you know that target market consists of consumers, and consumers are people, and people fall in various social classes. So, we have got a lower class, then there is a middle class, then there is a upper class which is having very high income, disposable income, and the middle class is having moderate savings, while the lower class is struggling and it is not having much savings, so it cannot go for expensive purchases. So, when the product is being manufactured or when the service is being generated, the marketer has to keep in mind the people for whom the product is being manufactured or the service is being generated. So, the target market for whom the product is being manufactured, that has to kept in mind, and that is one of the biggest influencing factors. So, while there are Mercedes and BMWs and Audi in the market, we also have a car segment which is very affordable. We also have Tata Nano, which is only 1,30,000, so that everybody can purchase, and therefore, everybody can own a four-wheeler. Then there is a factor called the cost of production. Now, any manufacturer, as we discussed, when it makes a product, it has to bear the burden of the cost. Now, that cost can be divided into fixed cost as well as the variable cost, and to stay afloat in the market, the marketer has to cover the cost. So, it has to cover the fixed cost as well as the variable cost. Over and above this cost, a marketer can decide to make some profit also. So, it can charge a price which is more than the total cost. So, whatever the difference is, then will become the profit of the marketer or the manufacturer. So, the cost of production, and it goes into labor cost, raw material, machinery, inventory cost, transit cost, etc., etc. So, these are the various types of costs any company has to bear, and then this cost of production will in turn influence price. External factors also influence pricing. Now, there are external factors such as the economy, the government policies, the legal issues. Now, these are the external factors which are beyond the control of the organization. So, as we know that marketing environment can be divided into two parts. Now, there is a marketing environment which is in control of the organization, and there is a marketing environment which is not in control of the organization. So, external factors fall in the marketing environment which is beyond the control of the company. If suppose the government increases the GST on certain product, so if the GST is increased on certain product, then it means that the price of the product will automatically increase. Or if the government decides to subsidize certain product, then the price of that particular product can be decreased because subsidy is being given by the government, and it is like that. So, in every budget we observe that the government increases price of certain products while it decreases prices of certain products. So, pricing is also influenced by the decisions of the government and the policies of the government. So, these were certain factors which were influencing pricing. Now, before ending the lecture, let me give you a quick recap of what we learned. So, we started with what price is. So, before pricing, we studied about what price is, and we defined price as the amount of money to be paid in order to acquire the product. Then we came to what pricing is. So, pricing is actually the process of fixing the price. Now, here various methods were adopted. Then we talked about the various objectives of pricing. So, we started with survival, then came to maximizing the current profit. Survival was about staying afloat, not to shut down the business. So, the price has to be minimum, it should cover the cost which include the fixed and the variable cost. Then maximizing the current profits. So, if the business is able to keep a track on the demand, so as the demand goes up, it can increase the price, and as the demand comes down, it can decrease the price. Then the third objective of pricing was capturing market share. So, the firms can capture market share when a company is new, it can keep the price low, and then as it gets more consumers from the market and the market share increases, it can gradually increase the price in order to maximize the profits. Then we talked about price skimming. Skimming I defined as charging a higher price. So, charging a price more than the premium because there are innovative and novel features in the product. So, a higher price can be charged, and from price market skimming we came to product quality leadership, in which the company first of all creates a certain status image of the product in the minds of the consumer and then charges a premium price from the consumer. From here we moved to various factors influencing pricing. The first factor came out to be nature of the product or service. Then the price of the similar products, like the price of the substitutes or the price of the complementary, now these also mattered. Then the third point was about the target market, the kind of consumers, the higher, medium or the lower class. The fourth point came about the cost of production. We have to cover the cost of production while deciding the price. And last but not the least, we talked about the external factors which were outside the organization and were beyond its control. This brings me to the end of this lecture. For any questions, you can mail me on ashishashish.awasthi@imsec.ac.in. Thank you so much.